We're talking more NBA draft prospects. Number 2 overall pick, Dylan Harper. Yeah, well, I don't know if he's going to be number 2 overall pick, but we're going to be talking about him. Cedric Coward. Another opinion on Derik Queen. Kasparas Jakucionis. It is all coming up alongside number 1 draft prospect, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and why don't you all just step alongside now and let me in? Is that even how that goes? I don't think so, because I don't think my accent's right. Let me try that again. Why don't you just step aside now, let me on in? Bad? Good? Probably not. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. So thumb it and bang it. And if you want more terrible accent work, that's literally what we're here for. I don't know what else we could possibly be doing now. We're actually here to talk about the NBA draft. We are talking Dylan Harper. We're talking Kasparas Jakucionis, Cedric Coward is on the docket for today. Who else? We've got Derik Queen and the big fella, Danny Wolf, as we talked with Stephen Gillaspie from No Ceilings. So we might as well just get Stephen Gillaspie from No Ceilings in. Stephen, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Josh, man, I appreciate you having me on. It's always a fun time whenever it's that time of year to come back on your show, man.
Yeah, it is. It's a good time of year. We're going through all these draft prospects. We just spoke with Tyler Metcalf earlier today from No Ceilings as well. We always get a bunch of you guys from No Ceilings on to talk about these draft prospects. And what was interesting is that everyone knows the way that I approach is I ask people who's someone that you're higher on or lower than the general consensus. And out of I think I've done 6 shows so far. One of the names that we're going to talk about, one of the names you brought up, is Derik Queen, and he appeared as someone who was either lower or higher on 3 of those people's lists. So a polarizing prospect. We're not going to get to him just yet. We're not quite at that spot just yet. What we are going to do is talk about a guy that you think might be just getting a little bit overrated, just pushing a little bit too high based on your personal preference of where this guy's value sits. And of course, we are talking about Illinois' point guard, Kasparas Jakucionis, who is, if you couldn't tell by the name, Lithuanian. If you had to give a 30-second summary of who Jakucionis is, who is he?
He is a jumbo creator. I have him listed as a perimeter player. So if everything hits right, he's a guy that you can play kind of 1 through 3, snappy decision maker, someone that you would want to kind of orchestrate your offense.
So you say like a perimeter sort of creator. So we've got tall point guards in the NBA now. Obviously, we've got guys like LaMelo Ball. There's Josh Giddey. Some will debate whether he's a point guard or if he's a wing or a forward or whatever. Where do you see Jakucionis? Is he more of the LaMelo tall point guard? Is he more of the Josh Giddey? He's sort of his creator, but he's not necessarily a point guard. How do you view his value?
He's somewhere, if there was a Venn diagram of both of them, I think that he fits kind of perfectly in the middle in the best and I would say kind of the more concerning ways. The thing is that he has great vision. He's not considered the best passer in this class, which is kind of, I would say, a detriment for Kasparas because he also is very turnover prone. Now, I've talked with several people who are kind of curious as to when his turnovers like really ever held like an elite prospect back. I don't really have a great answer for that, but typically what we do see is that players that struggle with turnovers in college, that does carry over into the NBA. What we saw with Cade Cunningham coming out of Detroit. Now, Kasparas, the idea is that he's a guy that you want the ball in his hands. Why I'm a little bit more concerned, Josh, is that he's not very good shooter with the ball in his hands. He shot barely over 30% on his dribble jumper threes, and we saw on pretty decent volume on over 115 attempts. He really struggled to shoot with the ball in his hands. Now, off the ball in a catch and shoot manner, he shot over 39% on smaller volume. So it's kind of diametrically opposed, like different ends of the spectrum, what you want him to do and what he's tricky in that regard.
So you talk about, like, we've seen a lot of these sort of players, these taller point guards. Like, how does he shoot? Can he work off ball? And he needs the ball in his hands. But if he's going to put the ball in his hands, is the team going to be good enough in that scenario? And that leads to a guy that might put up numbers in certain situations. But as you look to go to the next level, where does that leave him? It's like, I feel like everything we've discussed about Josh Giddey in so many moments, he put up numbers, but the team goes nowhere. And then, like, where does it go when you want to get to the next level? And how do you rely upon the shooting? And how do you work with the defense? And how do you work with all of these things? And one thing that I want to circle back to, you talked about the passing. He is a turnover-prone player, but you said, like, he's not the best passer. Like, where, like, is he just an above-average passer for a point guard? Like, because again, with these sort of guys, you want passing that opens up a bunch of stuff. You hitting turnovers, you want to be creating points out of nothing in other scenarios. Because I'm a big one of those guys who's like, turnovers are gonna happen. The best players get the most turnovers because they're creating things. They're not doing just little tiny handoffs like Tyus Jones, but that doesn't create stuff for other guys. So you're saying his passing is not maybe creating those extra points while also giving them away on the other end.
Exactly it. And his vision is fine. I wouldn't say no one can see. And that's kind of my biggest concern with Kasparas is I don't know his elite skills. He's not an elite shooter. He's not an elite defender.
Don't know what happened there, Stephen, and my internet. Something in between across the ocean just didn't work properly. So we'll go back into talking about this level of passing that Jakucionis provides, and that high level sort of creation that is the trade off with turnovers. So where do you see that passing level from Kasparas?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've seen NBA players who struggle with turnovers in college come in, and it kind of followed them. We've seen it with a player like Cade Cunningham. And that can kind of follow a player, but I don't know if the trade-off with Jakucionis is going to be what we saw with Cade, because Kasparas isn't the best playmaker in his own class, and we did see that with Cade Cunningham. Yegor Dimon is the player who I perceive as a better playmaker. Now, what Kasparas has that Yegor doesn't is that he's not gun-shy at all going to the basket. He actually handles contact pretty well, which is why I think his frame and his measurables are important. But without him being an elite passer, I don't necessarily know what his one elite skill is, which is why, like, I'm not like way out on him. I have him 15th on my board. I just have questions, and I don't know if he's going to be a player like what we saw with Josh Giddey in Oklahoma City, where on a bad team, sure, you can play him, but once Oklahoma City started getting better, they were perfectly fine trading him away for Alex Caruso, and that's not what you want to draft within, the top 8 or so picks, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that is those problems. Is like, we always have to look at scale and putting up numbers on teams that don't mean anything or aren't mattering at the moment. And then what does it mean is you get better, and as things tighten up and defenses work harder to stop what you bring. Like, it does create these sort of different concerns, and that is a worry. Then, like, one thing I will say about Jakucionis is, like, the 3-point shooting is not great. The volume is still okay. So, like, he almost hit 2 threes per 36 minutes. That's not like he's not like an avoidant necessarily three-point shooter. He's not like out there just never taking them. They're not going in, but he is still taking them, which is part of it. Like, having a level of confidence in that, plus you're hitting 85% or so from the free throw line, is a good sign too. So I'm not going to sit here, and you can correct me if you think this is wrong. I don't think that he's going to be a non-shooter, but like, at least that volume is there, and you said getting to the rack and taking those shots. Those are important things because that gives you an indication that, look, they might develop, because if you've never taken them, they're never going to develop.
That's 100% true, and a lot of people do look at shot frequency as an indicator of how successful you are going to be as a shooter down the line, and we see it all the time. NBA players do go into the NBA, and they do improve as shooters. So if you feel like you can bring in Kasparas and improve that jumper, that's going to be the swing skill that unlocks his entire game, right? But I just feel like they're kind of safer bets, so to speak, with some of these other players within this class. I just wouldn't be too bent out of shape racing to get him, like I said, within the top 8. I have him 15th, but if he went a little higher, like 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that neighborhood, that might make some sense depending on the team. Like, say, the Brooklyn Nets, who are in desperate need of an offensive engine. Like, I could get down with the team like that taking him.
Yeah, that's who I had him going to in my first mock draft a couple of weeks ago. But we're in a zone here where there's a lot of different guards. There's fears. There's Jace Richardson. Then there's guys like a little bit later on, Nolan Traore. There's Diego Demon that you mentioned. There's a lot of different point guards in this area. You go down a little bit later, guys like Hugo Gonzalez, those sort of players. Trey Johnson's up earlier, obviously, like these combo guard types. There's just a lot of guards. This is a draft that feels like there's a lot of guards, and you just got to find the one that makes the most sense, I guess, with your team and where you project your team to be in the future. We're going to come back for your takes on Derik Queen, again, a polarizing prospect, and the projected number 2 pick in this draft, Dylan Harper, coming up as well. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by DoorDash, and it is the NBA playoffs, so you know what time it is. That means there are big performances and there are bigger rewards, and DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It is called They Swoosh and You Score, so anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members get a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. You place an order of $20 or more, use the code WINGSTOP50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. That offer is valid from noon to midnight the day after that game as well. Terms apply, of course. With DoorDash and Dash Pass, there are so many great opportunities and so many great benefits you get, and this is just another one of those. So keep an eye out, see if someone drops a 50, and then you can get that Wingstop 3-piece crispy tenders combo. So sign up for Dash Pass, unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. And when any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day. I believe Wingstop's opening in Australia as well. I'm not sure this offer's going to work, but we don't have a Wingstop here, and I think it's coming. But anyway, $20 plus order and code WINGSTOP50. That is Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. All right. What's your take on Wingstop? Is it good?
I probably am the person to ask the least. I'm not a big wings guy. I think just chicken wings are a little overrated. I'm probably going to get you canceled here just for having me on. I'm totally the wrong guy.
No, this is good. No, look, this is good because I'm not. There's too much. I don't like the fiddle. I don't like the bones. Like the effort to deliciousness ratio is not there for me. It's like I got to eat and pick. No, what for?
I always say it's too little of meat for so much work in your hands.
Effort to deliciousness ratio. It's why, like, hey, I love crab, but if I have to crack a crab open and suck bits out, give me the crab. I love it, right? It's like wings, but the effort there, the hands, Anyway, we'll both get cancelled at the same time, Stephen. I'm okay with going down that route, but let's go to Derik Queen. Again, we've had 2 people talk about Derik Queen already. Someone said that he was one of their more underrated prospects. Someone said, no, I think he might be a little bit on the overrated side. You're coming in on the Derik Queen might be getting underrated side. Now, we've gone through on this show already the deficiencies. He's like a 6'10" offensive big man who probably can't really defend at all and maybe never can, but there are a lot of skills that are intriguing. I'm going to guess that you think that this skill level, the offensive skill level, which this is the thing that happens with players, like it's enough to offset what happens defensively. Is that a blanket statement to you, or is it like, no, I'm still going to need the right person next to him to be able to make that work? Because there are players, I'm not saying that he's Nikola Jokic, but Nikola Jokic has defensive concerns. You don't have to pair him with someone. Look, you figure that out. But there are other players where you go, I need him next to the right guy, and then everything else shines through. Is he closer to the don't worry about it, or is it more like we actually need the right guy there, and then it unlocks?
I think that's a really good question. I'm more in the don't worry about it camp, and to be honest, I think the defense is probably a little overblown. I watched him play against Illinois, against the aforementioned Kasparas Jakucionis, and defend him out in space and put the clamps on him. Like Jakucionis couldn't drive past Derik Queen, which I don't know if that's a bigger indictment against Kasparas or bigger props for Derik on his defense. But I mean, the offense is really what you're going for here, because he's a guy who you see the numbers, but they don't really marry the film that you see with his court vision and his ability just to kind of throw these high level passes, especially for the big man. And anybody who's watching the NBA playoffs, you can see how important it is for the offense to be able to flow through the big man and not necessarily just end with the big man as a play finisher. And if you just watch him on film, he moves like an NBA player. Like there's nothing you can look at to quantify this, but sometimes you just got to watch film and watch a player move, and you're just like, oh wow, there's something special about the way that he moves on the floor. I love his efficiency as a playmaker and the fact that he can be lined up in so many different areas on the court and make a difference. And I think more so the shot is going to be another thing that you can look at to unlock him even more. Now, he only shot 20% on very low volume this year from deep. But if you look, he was ranked in the 81st percentile in the mid-range game. His touch around the basket, even on non-dunks, is like stellar. And he's a good free throw shooter too. So a lot of these projectable touch indicators for big men, they tie in right with Derik Queen. So I think the conversations that we've been having with Kamal Malawach and his ability to space the floor eventually, we should be having those, if not more, with a guy like Derik Queen, who also is a body transformation guy. Within one work, we've seen this young man just put the work in and cut down from where he was. And he still has work to go, but this is a guy who doesn't shy away from the smoke. Like, he wants to smoke. He'll read your social media comments and go put in the work and then let you know how bad of a take you had against him down the line. So I love that. I love a player who isn't afraid of speaking his mind. I love a player who will take and wants those difficult shots like what we saw him do in the NCAA tournament. I just think that I have him fourth on my board, and I know that's very high for a lot of people, but I'm just looking at a guy who is so skilled, who I believe can play both front court positions, give you offensive lineup versatility. And again, I don't think the defense is nowhere near as bad as what people are making it out to be.
I was just about to ask you, do you think that he's a center, or do you think that he needs to play with a center? But you answered that question already. So we've gone over Queen quite a bit now, but it is interesting to hear those different takes, and he is quite a polarizing prospect. But this is a guy that I'm not really sure is all that polarizing of a prospect, because I don't know if there's anybody that doesn't have Dylan Harper sitting at number 2 on their board. And yeah, there are, I guess, some shooting concerns with Harper. Like, he's not considered an elite shooter, but he's big, he's a playmaker, he's, I think, going to be a pretty good defender, can score. Like, he's the sort of guy that I think in a lot of drafts, like, I don't want to put too many words in your mouth, Stephen, but he'd go number 1 in last year's draft without any hesitation, I'm guessing. Like, and in a lot of those drafts, like, he would. But yeah, I guess if we're going to talk about Harper, what's the number one thing to you that stands out for him? What is the thing where you go, that's it, that's the thing that we bank on with Harper, and then we see everything else come with it?
If I have to boil it down into one kind of category, I would just say production. Josh, he had an 8.6 BPM on a horrid team. Like, the fact that he has a BPM bordering 9, like, he should win an award or get a medal for how much effort and production he put in on this team. He's got a +6 wingspan, which I think does play in to the potential to grow as a versatile kind of maybe even 2-position defensive guy. He had a block percentage of almost 2 and a steal percentage of over 2.5, which isn't elite by any means, but it's definitely showing that there's something behind that. He's got a good body on him. He's nowhere near as unathletic as what some of the conversations around him had come out this early on in the season. He had 11 dunks on the year, 8 of which came in the half court. So that's showing that he can create his own looks. And again, this is all on a bad team. So you're looking at a guy who can be an offensive hub, who can score for himself via off the dribble, driving to the basket. He can score playing off of others, which I know is a big concern with, the San Antonio Spurs having the number 2 pick. His best shooting percentage actually came when he was open. He shot over 52% on open catch and shoot 3. So I don't know why he wouldn't be able to thrive next to a De'Aaron Fox or a Stephon Castle playing off of those two. And, oh, by the way, he had a higher assist percentage than Kasparas Jakucionis on a worse team at 27 and a significantly lower turnover percentage at 14.8. So productivity would be the one thing that I would look at from Dylan Harper and say, yeah, I'm perfectly fine taking this guy second overall.
And he's done it, like, really at any level. Like, yeah, you said a bad team, but any sort of Hoop Summit stuff, any representative stuff, it's always been the same. He's always been that guy. He's always been the guy that puts up those numbers, whatever the competition, whatever the teammates. He's always been that lead guy. Now, you mentioned playing alongside Fox and Castle, because that's the assumption at this stage. He's going to San Antonio, pick number 2. And I agree that he could play off of De'Aaron Fox, and I agree that he could play next to Stephon Castle. I guess the problem gets to, like, can he play with both of them? Because how does that work? Now, to me, he is very clearly a better prospect than Stephon Castle, like, without question. And Fox is obviously older. We're talking 7-8 years older at this point in his career. you don't. I think if you had to play him with Castle and Fox, which again is the way the team currently is, that takes away the advantage of having Dylan Harper on your team, of having the ball in his hands, of using his height to see over defenses, to hit the passes, to run all that stuff. Is there? There's no real way, I don't think. And again, your opinion on this is interesting. That he has any there's no point in trying to turn him into an off-ball sort of a player. Like he does, as much as he doesn't need the ball, the best outcome I think comes from him having the ball. Do you agree with that, or do you think he can become more of an off-ball guy, and that's a better path for success?
I think that's a very good question, and I think that comes down to if we're talking about him specifically as a player for the betterment of the Spurs, right? And if you're looking at for the betterment of the Spurs, I think he can play off ball. I mean, look at what we've seen from a guy like Malcolm Brogdon play on a team that had two ball dominant guys with a Chris Middleton and obviously Giannis Antetokounmpo. And he went to play with the Boston Celtics, he played next to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and those two guys are going to eat. And he also had Marcus Smart and so on and so forth. And now he's always found himself on teams where there's multiple ball handlers, but he found a way to make a difference. Dylan Harper is a significantly better prospect than what we saw Malcolm Brogdon be at a significantly younger age. I wholeheartedly believe that Dylan Harper can be a good prospect and a good NBA player without the ball. And if we looking at the playoffs, the Spurs want to make the playoffs, the teams that are in there right now and the teams that are actually winning in the conference finals, they have players who can attack with the ball in their hand and also play off one another. And that's what I think if you're the Spurs, you're going to kind of model after that, especially with Oklahoma City just being the next state over, you know?
What do you make of players like Dylan Harper? And there's been a trend in this, and I don't even know if it's approval, if there's anything to back it up, but players who come from an NBA family having a leg up or a safer floor or an ability to just, because they've been around teams and programs and higher end training programs and all that sort of stuff. So Harper obviously is Ron Harper's son, played for the Chicago Bulls in their dynastic run in the 90s. We've got Jace Richardson coming into this draft, who's the son of Jason Richardson. We've obviously Steph Curry. There's so many of these players, and seem to be more of them now coming through with NBA bloodlines. Do you think that isn't an advantageous thing that either confers a higher ceiling or a higher floor? How do you view that when evaluating a prospect like Dylan Harper or any of those sort of prospects?
I don't have any scientific data to back this up, Josh, but it always feels like it depends on how good the dad was. If the dad was great, it always seems like the player is going to be, or the son is going to be worse, and vice versa, right? Which really puts Dylan Harper in a pickle because, I mean, Ron Harper was really good, but he wasn't like a Hall of Famer. So I don't know if that kind of nullifies him into just being like a really good NBA player for a really long time. But I don't know. I think that there's something to it because you can understand that their preparation coming up, especially with the way basketball is played now, especially at this point in basketball history, I could understand that if I'm an NBA team, like, okay, at least the players used to the lifestyle, they've grown up around the money, they've grown up around the fame, and they've seen their parents interact with teams. I think that there is a little bit to that. I don't think that that's worth nothing. I just don't know how much I would put into it over, film production, what have you.
We've got a couple more guys that we're going to get to in this episode, and we'll come back and get to them in a sec, including Danny Wolf, and a name that has been buzzing a bit, and it's a weird name. He has decided to stay in the draft. He's not a weird name as such, but it's a name that I just didn't think would be getting this much attention on, and that is Cedric Coward. He was going to transfer from Washington State to Duke, and that was going to be what he was going to be doing, and now he's staying in the draft, so that's not going to happen. He is a little bit of an older prospect. He's almost 22. Why has there just been so much buzz about Coward lately?
Yeah, the thing with Coward is that I think it was weighing, do you really believe that this guy who only played 6 games for a team that was in one of the better, I won't say the best, but a good basketball conference in college basketball, who has also said that he's going to go play for the premier college basketball team if he was to stay in and transfer, like, how are you going to confidently make that decision, especially when the player is only playing 6 games due to an injury, right? So that's really what kind of made him a question mark throughout the year. It's not that no one, had no idea who this player was, but it's how seriously do you want to invest in the time to scout these same 6 games over and over and over again and put that body of work up against these other players who are consistently being productive, So that's why he wasn't really talked about up until late, whenever he kind of declared himself that, yes, take me seriously. I'm staying. I'm going to be in the draft. Now I'm staying. I'm getting all the things that I'm wanting to hear. I'm hearing them now. So now you're kind of seeing like an arms race almost for who kind of likes him more now.
What do you make of the fact, I think we're going to see a lot more of this, obviously, with the proliferation of NIL and that changing, that for a guy that started off at Willamette and then was 2 years at Eastern Washington, then was at Washington State, and then was transferring to Duke and sort of bouncing around quite a bit. Like, what do you make of that sort of, I don't know if it's instability, but it's just like changing context all the time. Like, how do you evaluate that sort of a thing? Is that a knock on a player that they're just constantly moving, or is it like he was at a level and it's like he was too good, so I moved up, and he's too good and he moved up, so it's too good and I moved forward? Like, how are you viewing that sort of, especially in the context of Coward here?
If it's in the context of the intel has been great about him no matter where he has played, then I actually love the fact that, okay, this guy might have been an underrated prospect. He proved himself at this level, making a step up. He's continuing to be a hard worker, continuing to do the right things, stay there for 2 years, right, at Eastern Washington. So we do have a small sample size, albeit of stability. And then it only makes sense for him to want to prove it at the higher level of competition, because that's what NBA teams are going to want to see. How good are you against these really good conferences on a more consistent basis? So I think that he's kind of checking all the boxes that NBA officials and executives are wanting to see by doing that. Now, if it's a player who's committing to a D1 program and I don't like the playing time I'm getting, I'm going to transfer down, and then I didn't really work out here, I'm going to transfer to another smaller school or kind of a like school. That's where these questions kind of come in, and that's where you kind of want to go and do the research and dig for the intel on that type of player. But for Cedric, he's of the former, obviously, proving himself against competition no matter where he's been at.
Talk with Tyler earlier today about Nick Clifford, who's another older prospect, a wing sort of a player who, like, I'm going to put Coward in a similar, I think maybe they go in a similar range in the draft. They're a similar size player. Coward's got an unbelievable track record of shooting across those multiple stops. Like, the percentages are outrageous. He put up ridiculous block numbers this season as well. How do you sort of compare and contrast both of those older players, and what sort of position is Coward? Is he a guy that plays as a 2? Does he play up as a 3 or up to a 4? Like, where does he sort of fit into that mix?
I think for Cedric, he is going to be more of like a 2-3, a more traditional kind of wing player. I think that what separates him from a Nick Clifford is that Nick has a more polished kind of go-to dribble move and attack, and that if you're really looking for a way to put a ding or a smudge on the rise that you've seen from a Cedric Coward, is that we really haven't seen him be an isolationist. We really haven't seen him take a man off of a bounce and go and get his own bucket, which some people really do value that. Some people want to see the guy be the man, like in every aspect, like we have seen from Nick Clifford for now the past 2 seasons. He's continued to answer the bell for his team by being the go-to guy and taking the hard looks and creating his own shot. That's really the only knock that you can put on a Cedric Coward, because his handle isn't as advanced. Now, it's gotten better, and if you've listened to a Cedric Coward interview, he interviews very well, by the way. He has said that he feels like the handle is getting there, and that would have been the one thing that we would have seen improve throughout the year, because he started to feel more comfortable against a higher level of competition. So I would say that would be the stark difference, but I think that Cedric has the measurables and the length advantage in the more traditional sense as opposed to a Nick Clifford, but they're both great athletes. Nick is going to be a little bit stronger, in my opinion, and he's going to be able to be a more versatile kind of Josh Hardy type player, where Cedric is going to be more of a kind of two-way wing guy.
If you look at this next guy that we're going to talk about, you're going to be, one of your reactions might be, what in the Rick Smiths is going on with this guy? Because he, especially the photo I've used here, he looks like he's 50 years old. But he has, I don't know, it's a weird look, man. But Danny Wolf has numbers which are impressive, and they are the modern type of big man numbers. He's a center at a 24 usage. He hit 34% from three. He took a decent chunk there. He rebounded at a high level. He blocked shots at a high level. I said he's 21 years of age. He played at Michigan. He's almost 7 foot. He's as close as you can get without getting there. 6'11.75, I think he officially measured at. So is he the modern big man that looks like he's not the modern big man? Like what do we even get out of Danny Wolf? Because we don't honestly, like, we can see a lot of big men who shoot. We see a lot of these big white centers, but the American ones, like, they're Mason Plumlees. They're not really like Danny Wolf. So he's an interesting guy that feels like a throwback, but sort of isn't. I don't know if that's the best way to phrase that or not.
He is tricky because the way that you hear him talked about is like he's an automatic dribble pass shoot guy. And the biggest question mark that I have with a guy like Danny Wolf is, can you really shoot it though? You know, like that's going to be the big thing. But he is very skilled, very savvy. I almost could imagine him in those black and white photos with the Boston Celtics uniform on based on what you... Exactly. Yeah, right. Very old school in that sense. But I mean, the shooting aspect, he shot only 33.6% from deep on over 5.5 attempts per 100. His best shot type was when he was guarded, oddly enough, where he shot almost 37%. But he's only a career 65% free throw shooter. We know he can pass, though, because his assist percentage was 22.8. While acting as a point guard, I would assume for like the first time in his basketball career at Michigan, because the guards at Michigan just were atrocious. He can dribble too. He was used the most as a pick and roll ball handler on 129 possessions, and he actually graded out really well for a guy who's going to be 7 feet tall in shoes. Rebounded really well too for a skilled big man, which is what you want to see, because Josh, you've seen this too. A lot of times these skilled big men, they can do all these fun things, but can they still do the big man things that matter, right? He rebounded, 9.1 offensive rebound percentage, 25% defensive rebound percentage, had 15 of Michigan's 23 double-doubles, right? And he's shown that he can play next to a traditional big man in a Vlad Golden this year at Michigan. At Yale, he was the lone big man, and he worked out very well, albeit in lower competition. So smart guy, even smart defender, 73 stocks to just 76 fouls committed. As a big man, that's pretty good. I like the decision making on that end of the floor too. He's very funky. The shot's going to be kind of the swing skill based on how he's kind of projected as a player.
What's the defense like? What's the rim protection like? He's 7 foot tall. Like, that's 1.6 blocks per 36 minutes. The rebounding we talked about is strong, but like, is he going to get cooked if he gets switched out? Can he be a deterrent, a high level deterrent? Or what's the defense like for Wolf?
I think what you're wanting is an effort guy. I don't think that you can put him out there and expect him to be your anchor right now. If he does go out and defend the space, it's really going to be kind of a show and recover. It's going to be like on a switch, I'm going to make myself really, really big and try like in Wild Animal. I'm going to try to scare the smaller guy in front of me and then run back to my assignment. That's what I would imagine him being the most successful at. But again, just kind of like how we were talking about earlier, the perception with a guy like Derik Queen, I don't think you're drafting a Danny Wolf because you're needing a defensive stalwart. You're looking for a guy who the offense can flow through, who you can trust as a decision maker, and who can kind of help your offense run through when your lead ball handler needs a spell.
He's going to be an intriguing player because, again, there are really interesting numbers that if it works, it works, but it just feels like that maybe I think we said effort, like an effort guy, a rotation guy, a consistent guy. We'll see where the shot goes rather than an high upside level of player. And that's totally cool as well, because not everyone's going to hit that upside. And at some point, we do need to grab guys who are just going to be contributors. I grabbed you to be a contributor on this show, Stephen, and you passed with flying colours, but you also got a high upside too, so I don't know how to judge that. It's just elite prospect. Thank you for coming on and chatting about these draft prospects with me. What have you guys got cooking over at No Ceilings at the moment?
Well, thanks, Josh, for having me on and not putting me in a prospect box. I really appreciate that. I have a couple fun pieces coming out. I'm doing a 2-part series called Should You Be Worried? And that's going to be based on kind of past, present, and future of NBA history, based on where your exact favorite team is drafting exactly in the 2025 draft. So I'm pulling a thread on how Serge Ibaka eventually turned into SGA and J-Dub, and how the Thunder could draft a player in this year's draft. So very fun pieces coming out, 2-part series on that. And then Friday, I know that Metcalf already plugged this, but our No Ceilings draft guide is going to be dropping. Not hyperbole, it's going to be our biggest one yet. A lot of work being put into that, still going on behind the scenes with all the players that are withdrawing from the draft and returning to college. So we're in overtime mode right now, making all that happen. But anything that you would want to see, you can go to noceilingsnba.com and find it. And then our YouTube channel, we are growing very, very quickly. Go over to YouTube and look up No Ceilings NBA, like, subscribe, and you can just catch all of our podcasts and fun little video projects that we're doing over there as well.
A bit annoying today that one of the best names in the draft returned back to school, Yaxel Lindenborg, is back there. And there's another guy that's got a fun name that I'm not sure whether he's gone back at. Yannick. Oh, what's his surname? I can't remember. I haven't done the work.
Oh, Niederhauser?
Yeah. Is he gone back or not? Because I like that name too.
I haven't seen anything. It's a very fun name. It's a 3-name name, Yannick Conan Niederhauser.
Yes.
Very fun.
Yeah, so I haven't heard about him going back. I thought he might, but disappointed to lose Yaxel. There, Stephen, thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so technical hiccup, but we got through it. All good. And we got to talk about some very fun NBA prospects. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to do the Dallas Mavericks season review show. I am going to do the second mock draft this week. I'm still, my board is a mess at the moment. I'm still trying to figure out where everyone goes, but that's okay. That is what all of this process is about. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.